and welcome to the SKS Guy. This is a brand new project based on our Facebook group called SKS Enthusiasts. You can go to Facebook, type in SKS Enthusiasts, and you'll find our website or group. There's about 2,000, 3,000 members we have right now, and the idea of coming up with this project was the fact that oftentimes we are seeing the same questions by newcomers, which everyone's welcome to the group, but oftentimes these questions will be repeated. The problem with Facebook is one question gets buried, and most people are not aware there's a search option on a group where you can search for solutions, but it's not something that people are aware of. So oftentimes they try and scroll, look for information, but if that stuff was posted out there 3 months ago, guess what? It's buried. Facebook is horrible about providing a learning environment. So one of the things we want to do is set up tutorials and how-tos on YouTube. Now, one of the things you're not going to see on this show is we're not going to go out to the range and start shooting the SKS. There is probably literally thousands of different types of videos out there, but there's very few based on the information that we're going to provide, and that's based on the questions that we continually get on the group. Now, we don't want to take away from the group, but the idea is to provide more of a visual piece of information. That way when someone's needing the information, they can come to our YouTube account. We're going to have links on the group. After this video, we'll be posting that out there where you can come to our YouTube account and actually see physically what we're talking about, and that kind of helps. So one of the things, the first thing that we wanted to come up with today was addressing the SKS extended magazines versus the fixed magazines. Oftentimes this comes along with a bolt modification if you're going to end up doing that, and we want to provide a little bit of warning on them doing these particular modifications. Now, some of you are going to say, well, I've already done that, and the idea of these videos is to try and provide information for people who just aren't sure. I'm sure many people have done the modifications or carry around the fixed magazines, and you may or may not know this information. So let's start on here, and I'll kind of get briefly into it. This is a fixed magazine that has been around in the SKS since its inception back in the 40s. It works. There's nothing wrong with it. It holds 10 rounds. It is easy to clear. If you have a jam on the firearm and you need to clear, simply use the magazine release. The bottom of this thing will empty out. Let me show you here. It'll empty out, and guess what? You can, apologize for the lag here on the camera. It's on a other camera, so it's a little bit laggy on it. Anyway, you can actually use the mag release and empty out the magazine itself if there's ever a problem. Now, what people want to do is they want to take one of these guys here. This is called a duckbill magazine, which will hold 20 rounds. They can go up to 40 and even 50 round drums that you can attach. Now, what I wanted to kind of give here is the reason why I put this magazine up. I'm sure many of you have seen this. This is a Tapco 20 round magazine. It seems to be the most reliable size-wise, and that's why we're using this as an example. Now, I'm going to take the other magazine and lay it on top, and I want to give you guys a visual here. As you can see, it fits almost identical to the fixed magazine, and that's because it fits in the same slot. So actually, you don't have to modify the receiver on the firearm. In fact, you probably don't have to do an awful lot to just take this guy and put it right in there. There is one problem, however, that does differ between the two magazines, and that's what we wanted to get into, was the idea of the modifications itself. Now, the idea of having a 20 round magazine that's like this is you can quickly exchange it, and grab another 20 round and put it in there, and you're good to go. It releases from the firearm with just one push of the magazine. It drops, and you can just take another 20 round like this, or a 30, or whatever you want, and simply put it back in the firearm. You're good to go. There is a problem, however. You're going to need to carry around a bunch of these guys here. The 20 rounds are the most reliable. There are 30 rounds, or some of these big old boys here probably won't even fit in the camera here. One of these guys here you can put in there, but the 20 round seems to be the most reliable. especially in the Chinese versions. They seem to be almost plug and play. You put them in there and they tend to work really well. However, there is one particular problem with an extended magazine, and that's what we're going to go in today, is explaining about. There's a thing called a drop bolt magazine modification, or a drop bolt mod is what they'll say it in short. And what that does, let me take this magazine out of the way here, and I'll kind of put a couple of examples here. Inside the firearm itself, and again, we could probably show you how this works on the outside of the firearm, but we're doing everything internally so everybody can kind of see an idea of what's actually happening inside the firearm. It's very easy to see someone put an extended magazine on their firearm and you see it work and you think, oh, okay, that's how it works. Then at a later date, we may go into that physically with the rifle themselves, but for now we wanted to cover this. This actually has a drop bolt modification on it. And when you compare the two of them side by side, you can actually see that the one marked with a C on it, or the one on the bottom here, is a little bit wider in through here. Now this may look like it's crooked. It actually isn't. It's just the way the angle of the camera is. It's actually straight and smooth. So when I turn this on its side here, and you can kind of see there's a ridge right here, there actually isn't. That's just a line that is separate between the two of them. Now this one here actually has a much larger lip right here. Now what's going to happen, and this is the reason why we needed to do a visual on this, what's going to happen when you have a bolt modification is you're going to have the top of this magazine is going to be inside your receiver. If you happen to have a jam and you want to clear that jam, meanwhile you still have a loaded magazine or there's rounds in this magazine, it puts you in a precarious position, because if the bolt is forward on the SKS, that's meaning you fired the firearm, a round did not discharge, and your bolt is in the forward position. So you have this magazine here that you would want to remove. The problem is with these particular magazines is that by their design, you cannot eject this magazine unless the bolt is pulled back. And that's just the way it works. That's not the same for the fixed magazine, but an extended magazine, regardless if it's a drum, a 30 round or a 40 round, it's the same situation. And that's based on how the design of the lips and how it fits into the firearm. But what it does do, it puts a position where you cannot pull this firearm out until you pull the bolt back. Now, kind of follow me with this. If you're pulling the bolt back and you're trying to hold the magazine to eject it and disengage the magazine by the mag release, your hand's down there, you're pushing the magazine, especially if it's happened to have the stock release, you're having to pull the magazine release towards you, hold the magazine, pull it down, and at the same time be pulling the bolt back, because you've got to remove that magazine or you take the chance of actually loading up another round into the chamber. And if your hand slips off that bolt for any reason, you could easily grab another round and slam it into the back of the round that's jammed in the firearm. Or there actually have been reports of people being seriously injured simply by adding this modification here. And I wanted to give you guys an idea, and that's why these magazines are right here together. This particular, let me show you this here. This particular bolt has a modification on it, and I'm going to show you here. Just plugs right in, pushes out, pushes in. See how it's going in, and push it right in there, and push it out, push it in, push it out. Now this one here, I can't. I could try all I want to try and get the lip around there and try and jam it in there, and it simply won't. So if you picture this one here, you'll have this lock. Let me put this in here for you. I'll be right back. Let's see, get it loose here. Dropping the magazine in here so that way you can see it. Okay, that's the bolt locked up. As you realize, you cannot pull this forward, so the bolt's going to have to be slid backwards before this magazine can be dropped. Not so with the bolt modification. And once that's done, it can slip out either position. In a closed or open position, the bolt can be removed. So it's very important about this modification. There's lots of YouTube videos out there. We maybe do one in the future, but again, like I mentioned, we're trying to give a tutorial on the information about what's out there. You can find the videos that are out there, quite a few of them, and they are going to vary slightly. So one of the things that I wanted to also go over is if you happen to look at the videos, you are going to find most of them are going to tell you to remove this spot here to use a Dremel. Now, one of the things that you have to look at is right on the inside of this firearm, there is a channel where the firing pin here goes through. And it's very possible if you're using a grinder, you could warp or affect the integrity of the steel by using a grinder if the metal is kept too hot. They will tell you to cool down the bolt itself, but really there's no way of, if you take water and you dip it in it after you grind it a little bit, you're really changing the integrity of the steel itself anyway if you're heating it up and having to cool it back down to that kind of temperatures that you're taking the metal off. What's highly advised is you get a Dremel. Find someone that has one. If you don't have one, you can get them pretty reasonable on Amazon, but use a Dremel drill and a small grinder attachment. They actually make cutting blades and different things like that, and I found the cutting blades work really well to remove the material that's on here. It takes you about 45 minutes to do the modification with the Dremel, as opposed to probably about 10 minutes with the grinder, but you're not overheating the metal, and you're also fully in control. You have to imagine you're having a large grinder on this small piece that is not no more than a finger here. You can get an idea of how big the bolt is not, and you're trying to put a grinder alongside in there. There's not a lot of room. So anyway, we wanted to kind of cover that before, let you guys know if you see those videos out there. They don't give the instructions with it, but I highly advise that you use a Dremel when you're going to be doing that information, doing the modification that's out there. Now there are different types of SKSs that happen to come. They're called D&M models, and they do have the AK-47 mag, or that's in 7.62x3.9, and that if you happen to have one of those particular rifles, the modification is not needed. You do not need to modify your bolt to disengage the magazine itself. It already works without it. So if you happen to have a D or M model that has this, modifications are not needed. And so anyway, we just wanted to cover some of this stuff for you. Now, before I get out of here, again, we have the main topic, as you know, as I have it here also, is extended versus fixed. I know, hopefully you guys are still with me on this, because this is really, really important. One of the things that we've talked about on the modification now, we kind of went over that, and some of you that are purists, I am to a point as well, are going to say, I don't want to do this. And I'm going to tell you exactly why you don't need to have this modification. It looks cool. It gives the impression of having an AK-47 look to it or an AR look to it. Once you drop this magazine on there, it looks really kind of cool. On most modifications that you do on the SKS, this extended just kind of gives a really aggressive look to it. However, the fixed magazine itself, which can come in the 5-round or a 10-round itself there, will take these guys. It will take a stripper clip. Now that stripper clip will hold 10 rounds in it, and you can load just about as fast the 10 round as you can using the extended magazines. And the nice thing about using one of these guys here, so let me get this out of the way. Nice thing about using the stripper clip is if you're using this, you only have to carry around that small little part when you have an empty magazine piece, as opposed to having this guy here. You've used it, it's empty. Now what do you do with it? You kind of have to throw it all in the garbage or in your pocket. After about 3 or 4 of these, you've got an awful lot of spare parts laying around, and you don't want to lose these. These are 20 bucks a piece for those extended magazines on the average, and you don't want to be throwing those away either. So again, getting back to the information here, these stripper clips here, this is the stripper clip right here. You load it up. Once it's done, you can put it either in your pocket pretty easily, or actually dispose of it if you have quite a few of them. They run about $3 to $4 for the good ones. There are Chinese knockoffs that are out there. They're not Chinese originals that are on eBay and things like that. I'd use caution. They do take modifications, so try and buy the good ones. Oftentimes you can find them if they come with the ammunition, things like that, they'll work. So we're going to close up the video here. We want to keep these things under 15 minutes, so that way you're not getting bored with the information that's going on here. We can kind of drone on about the SKS for a long time. We're going to post this video out on YouTube. Please post any questions you might have about the modifications. Again, you can do a YouTube search and find quite a few of the modifications. We're trying to get information out there to help you guys about the questions that are coming up on our SKS group. And each week we're going to take one of those and provide it. So I wanted to thank you guys for watching this for us. It's a little rusty, I realize that. Trying to get everything set up here in the office to where I can do this. I have to have the camera and the computer and everything else in the office here to do it right. It's kind of hard to take all this stuff out into the shop and do it there. There will be some shop material coming up in the future, but that's as we move along here. So please post any questions you have. We can try and see if we can address those, and continue to visit our Facebook page below. And if you would please like the video, it helps us, sign up and subscribe to it. We'd appreciate it. It helps us move along and get more information to people by doing that. And this is the SKS guy, and I'll see you guys next week.